Complementary colors will mutually intensify and will provide maximum contrast. And when they're mixed together, they give you a wonderful range of neutral colors. Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom. I tried something a little bit earlier today. I want to give you a timer for the beginning of the show. And those of you that are looking in, let's give me a message to let me know if you received that. I'd like to know a little bit about how my technical expertise is going along. Today I'm broadcasting from Chesapeake, Virginia, and I'm on live to YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And I'm in the studio with my wife, Gloria.
Hello, everyone.
And those of you signing in for the first time, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll be back on every Thursday. I'll be back Thursday at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And always got an interesting content here about my watercolors and art and so forth. Now, today I'm going to I'm going to talk about complementary colors. They're very important in the art world. Complementary colors, and I'm also going to do a small, medium-sized demo painting using complementary colors. So let's go to my painting table, and let me get started. Okay, this is my color wheel, which we've seen before. If you've been on my programs, you've seen my color wheel before. Complementary colors they contain one primary here, let's say blue, and the complementary color is opposite, which is orange. But orange is comprised of the two other primaries, which is red and yellow. So when you combine the complements, orange and blue, you're really combining all three colors. And what happens in painting when paint is that it subtracts, or it absorbs light. So when you mix the complements, say blue with orange, it starts to get muddy. It starts to get brown and even go to black. And that's because you've got all three of the primaries in the mixture. So that's an interesting thing about complementary colors. Also, a complementary color will show up in a shadow. If you look at an object in a shadow, let's say a red apple with a shadow, and you look at the shadow, there's a little bit of green, which is the complement of red. A red apple, the complement is green. You'll see a little bit of green in the shadow. And when you do paint a shadow, you want to have a little bit of a complementary color in the shadow color. So there's a couple things there. But the reason complementary colors are so important is that they harmonize. And what do we mean by that? Well, they complement each other because they do a high contrast. Let's take a look at this chart here. You've got the yellow next to the violet, and there's a very strong contrast here, and it really makes the yellow look a lot brighter when you have the complements next to each other. Look at the yellow. Look at the orange and the blue when they're next to each other. They complement each other because they're contrasting, but they're the highest contrast in that particular color range. And the last complementary pair, it would be the green and the red. You can see the red is much brighter next to the green. So they harmonize when they're used together next to each other. Here's another way to look at it. I've got all the colors and the complements together. You can see here how the green and the reds really are much brighter next to each other. And the same with the yellow and the violet. When the colors are next to each other or adjacent to each other, they complement each other by making each color a little bit brighter, a little more contrast. So that's why the harmonizing with the complementary colors is very important. The majority of paintings that I have found and seen, and part of my own paintings, we work in a semi-neutral area. And we'll go into that a little bit here when I talk about that. We'll put the color wheel over here to the side. I got a couple color swatches here. For example, I want to get another one here too. I mixed the complements on top of each other. Let's say this is the orange color, and I put the blue over top of it. You see, if I put a real dark blue, it almost goes to black. Very dark color. But if I put a lighter mixture, say I put a little bit of water in with that and lighten the color a little bit, you can see like a half tone or a semi-neutral color between the light blue and the orange right here. Here's another complement, the green. If I added red to it, you can see the complementary color gives it a dark mixture. Now, if I go the other way, if I have the blue and I add yellow, orange on top of it, you can see the color mixes here. So when I talk about a semi-neutral, I'm really talking about a color that's in between the say orange and blue. There's a color in between with a mixture. That's called a semi-neutral. Now I was experimenting this week with some colors, and I discovered something here that I thought was new. I took the orange and I mixed it with the green number 1. Now these aren't complements, but they're semi-neutrals. Anything that crosses across the color wheel will be a neutral, semi-neutral. Well, I took those two colors. I took the orange. I didn't mix it with green. I mixed it with yellow green. I mixed the orange with yellow green up here, and I got yellow ochre. Well, I have yellow ochre in my palette. And yellow ochre is a semi-neutral. It's a neutral color, semi-neutral color. It's not a primary, but it's a mixture of other colors. And this is exactly how you get it. If you mix orange in with green number 1, you'll get a yellow ochre color. So that's something I was experimenting this week, and that's another way to look at colors and mixing them with your complementary colors around it. The way to look at the color wheel, the colors out here on the outside are saturated colors, fully saturated. For example, the blue here in my palette, this is cobalt blue, and this is ultramarine. That's the saturated color here in the palette. The orange here, the yellow orange, that's a saturated color. It's the pure pigment color right here. And when you mix them together is when you get those semi-neutrals. So anything inside the color wheel is going to be a semi-neutral. So that's the definition of a semi-neutral. I want to go over that. Another thing that's interesting about studying complementaries is I have found, and I've read through many books about complementary colors. The red orange, which is a combination of orange and red, the red orange and the blue green, which is right here in the middle of the colorway. If you look at the value here, the value across here, that's about the middle value range. Blue green, which is a mixture of blue and green. Those combinations are the coolest and the warmest in the color wheel. The red orange is the warmest color in the color wheel, red orange, and the blue green is the coolest color on the color wheel. And you can buy tubes of paint with those colors in, but and you can mix them all. These are mixed. I mix a little bit of orange with red, and I mix a little bit of blue with green. And I'm going to use a little bit of that today in my painting. But that's another interesting thing. This is the warmest and the coolest combination of colors on the color wheel. The red orange and the blue green. Okay, let's see if I want to. Okay, let's go over my painting plan today. And I've got. Let me go over my palette first. In my palette, I'm going to have yellow orange, which is down here on my palette. I'm going to have pyro red and alizarin crimson. This is pyro red. This is alizarin crimson. I'm going to use cobalt and ultramarine blue. Cobalt and ultramarine blue. And I'll use Hooker's green, which is over here in the right corner. I'm going to add a little bit of titanium white over here in the right corner, and a little bit of Payne's gray over here in the right top corner. So those are the colors I'm going to be using today in my demonstration painting. These are Holbein artist watercolors. I'm going to be using watercolor brushes from Holbein, which I'll go over when I go through the painting. And I'll be using Gemini watercolor paper on the painting. All these are available on everettswatercolors.com. And also, I have on my Fun with Watercolor page, which you can find a link on my website. Will take you to a description of today. It'll give you a photograph and also give you a drawing of today's demonstration. And you can also join the Everett Watercolor Art Group on Facebook, and you can download your painting, and I can take a look at that and give you some comments. And you can share that with those on the group. Okay, that's the equipment today. Okay. Let me get my painting. Okay. So let's talk about painting today. Okay. This is a couple reference photographs. This is a reference photograph I got at the waterway, and this shows a very bright orange, red-orange life preserver. With not necessarily a blue sky, but necessarily have blue water. And also, I found another interesting item here. This is what they use to tie up the boats on next to the waterway. So these logs and so forth is another interesting topic. So these are the two items I use. I use these two subjects here for the painting today. Here's my drawing. I always come up with here's my design drawing. I put the light preserver over here with the pole, and then I put the pilings over here with the tie-up pilings over here on this side. And there'll be some water here in the middle ground. Okay, so this is a copy of the drawing that I have on my the Watercolors page, that you can download on my website. And I did a couple preliminary plannings here. This is my value study, where I got darker here and light, dark and lights and so forth. I practiced kind of come up with a little value plan. And then I did a little color study with color pencils. These are Holbein color pencils I used to come up with. So I used the orange and the blues and the greens. So that's going to be the color scheme today. They're going to use in the painting, and the ones I showed you on the palette earlier. Okay, and here's the drawing on my painting board. Bring up a little bit closer. There's a drawing on the painting board, and I transferred that from the drawing. I transferred here to the 140-pound Gemini watercolor paper, and it's a quarter sheet. It measures 15 inches long and about 11 inches high. 15 by 11. Okay, quarter sheet. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is get some paints here going. And the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to paint I think I'm going to paint the light preserver first. So I'm going to start out with, we'll warm up the yellow orange. That's what I'm going to start with. And I'm going to go ahead and put this color in, and I'm going to go ahead and paint that in. I'm going to start with a nice orange. And this is a 1/2 inch Holbein synthetic brush. This is a 1/2 inch. I use this. This is the size. I use it for a size to get around this subject very nicely. And so it's a circular shape, but the angle I'm looking at it's a little bit oval. So it's really an oval shape, not a round shape. Because the angle I took the picture at was off to the side. So it's not a perfect circle. It's got an oval shape to it. So if you're really curious about shapes and curious about how things were drawn, this was drawn as an oval shape. Give a little more perspective than straight on round shape. I think straight on round shapes are sometimes not as interesting as a side view. All right, now what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna add a little bit of red to the mix now. Remember I said the red orange is the brightest color or the warmest color in the color wheel. So I'm going to use a little bit here. I'm going to put a little bit of yellow orange or red orange, a little bit of red orange here in this mix. And you can see right away, compared to that orange, which is a warm color, the red orange is even warmer. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to add some more color. I'm going to go back in. I'm going to pick up some more red, yellow, orange. Yellow orange. I'm going to go in. Wash out my brush. I want orange here at the top. So I'll put a little more pigment here because this is going to be the impact area. I want this to be the real showstopper on this painting. So I'll make this the brightest color and the warmest color. And I'll mix a little bit of that pyro red in with that orange. That'll give me that red orange. The red orange, which will be the warmest color in the painting. It happens to be the warmest color in the palette. Okay, now that I've got the yellow here, what I'm going to do is now I'm going to take this orange, and I'm going to create a semi-neutral. So I'm going to take the ultramarine blue. If you look at the color wheel, the ultramarine blue is opposite. It's a complement of orange. So I'm going to mix that in with the orange. I'm going to come over here now. I'm going to start painting these poles. Now they're orangey color, but I don't want them to be as bright as the central point here, the focal point. The focal point is going to be the orange light preserver. So I'm going to have a little bit of yellow orange over here, but it's mixed in with ultramarine blue, and that tones it down. So I got a semi-neutral by adding those two complementary colors together. A little bit of blue mixed in with the orange gives me a complementary mix. It's called a complementary neutral color. It's not blue and it's not orange. It's a combination of the two. But it gives me the color orange in there, which is what part of the color of this particular item has. It has the orange in it. Actually yellow ochre. Or even browns. But I decided to make it. I want to keep a little bit. The painting today, I'm going to have a lot of blues and a lot of oranges in it. My color scheme was to have blues and oranges. So this is really an orange color, but it's got blue mixed in it. Now, as I come away from the impact area, I'm even going to get a little bit duller back here. So I'm adding a little bit more blue to the mix. You'll see the color changing even more now. As I get further to the outside of the painting, the color gets less bright. Less bright. Does that make sense? It's bright over here, but it's going to be less bright over here. That means the chroma or the hue or the combination of the color is not going to be as dominant. It's not going to be as bright or as colorful if it's dull. So I'm going to wet the brush a little bit more. So I'm using a smaller brush here, and I'm going to mix a little more yellow, a little orange in there some more. But remember, I'm picking up that complement, which is blue, so that's going to dull it down. So here you've seen me. I put in an orange, which is a mixture. It's a mixture of yellow and red. But it's a color in my palette. And I've added ultramarine blue to that, which is the complement of orange. And that gives me a duller color. It gives me a mixed neutral of orange and blue. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to let that dry. Let that dry just a little bit. Next thing I want to do is I can take the smaller brush now. This is a number 8 round Holbein. And I'm going to take some of that blue, just ultramarine blue, with just a little bit of orange in it. So what I'm doing is I'm making the mix a little darker, mixing a little more blue in with that mix. Now I'm going to go in now. While it's still a little damp, and that's fine. I'm going to go in now. I'm going to put a little bit of definition now in this pole. there's a little shadow pattern here. So I'm going to add, right while it's still a little bit wet, I'm going to go ahead and put in some definition here, just a little bit. And it'll give me, as I put it on the damp surface here, it's also a little bit soft edge. A little bit soft edge, which is what I wanted. So I've added more of the complementary color now, but a little darker mix. So I've added a little bit of more blue to that same orange blue colors. I mean, a little bit darker, semi-neutral. So now I'm going back into that yellow orange mix now. I'm going back in, adding a little more color here with that, just to give a little more definition. I don't want to mess around with this too much, because this is not the most important part of the paint. But I want to show you how the complementary colors are used in different parts of the painting. Okay. All right, now it's time to get started with the blue. I think I'm going to play with the blue now. I'm going to take a bigger brush. This is the 3/4 inch flat from Holbein. And I'm going to mix a primary blue. In this case, it's going to be cobalt blue. And I want to make sure I have enough room here. So I'm going to take a little bit of this mixture up here with my sponge. And I'm going to bring that blue down here to give me lots of room, because there's a lot more area here to cover with the water. So I'm mixing up a lot of the cobalt blues color. It's a beautiful color. I love cobalt blue. It's a beautiful color. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take my large hake, which is a silver brush, large brush hake. This is also on my website. And I'm going to put just a little bit of water. I'm going to wet up this area a little bit. I'm going to put the water down here behind this pole. And I've got to do the pole too. I should have done the pole earlier, but I'm going to go ahead and put some water in. I'll get the water started. It doesn't matter where you work on the painting, as long as you have the plan was to get the little bit of color, get a little bit of color going here. Okay, so I'm going to go in here now. I'm going to go ahead and put in the cobalt blue. And I'm going to start here right next to the pole. And you'll notice now I'm going to put the blue right next to this orange. And you can see how the colors are going to pop out. When that color blue hits, it goes right next to that orange, it makes those colors really pop. The orange is going to look brighter. Even the blue looks bluer. Right here next to each other. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to turn my paper around because I'm right-handed, so I can get a right-handed stroke here. I'm going to come up next to the edge again. So I'm really starting in the middle of the painting here, because I'm going to I'm going to add in some different colors as I go away from the impact area here. So this is really the impact area, right here where the blue and the orange come together. Because they're the stars of my show. These are my complementary colors I'm putting together. I have a blue and orange color scheme. You can see how that blue now really works against that orange. It really makes it pop out. Okay, I'm going to go ahead now and put in some more color. I'm going to go ahead and put in the fill in the space here, putting in some more blue. And I'm also going to not forget the center here, the center of the light preserver, which you see a lot of them around the waterfront. You see them aboard boats and ships. All sailboats have them. All boats have them. Around the waterway, there must be. I think I probably have seen 50 light preservers next to the shore. Because a lot of people go fishing, crabbing, and go boating, and this is a safety requirement to have light preservers around for protection, for safety. Okay. I got to let that dry now before I can mess with anything else. So I can start with a little bit of the background. And before I leave that, let's see, let me get a little more blue up here. So even though these poles are not as bright as the orange one, they still have a little bit of contrast to them with the blue. The biggest contrast is right here with the orange. And I'm going to go back here. I got to turn it around again. Excuse me for moving it, but I'm right-handed, so in order to get the stroke working, you move the painting upside down to the side, get the angle you need to get the proper stroke. Okay. All right, I'm going to work now in the background, and I can finish up a little more of this blue, just a little bit more, no, it's not finishing off the blue, but let's get something started up here. So I'm going to go ahead and paint in the background. Now the background is an interesting color. The color I talked about, the blue-green. The bluish-green is the coolest color in the palette. So I'm going to take a little bit of Hooker's green, mix up a little bit of Hooker's green down here in the palette, and I'm going to bring in a little bit of ultramarine now. I'm going to bring in ultramarine now and mix in with that Hooker's green. So ultramarine is a little bit darker blue, but I don't want the blue that I'm using in the impact area, because that's the blue I'm saving for the impact area, which is around the light preserver. So here I got a mixture of blue-green, which is the background color. So this is the tree line back here. So I'm going to go ahead and put in some tree colors, which is blue and greens. But I'm not going to stay there very long, because what I'm going to do is I'll have in my little brush, my half-inch brush, I'm going to have some yellow orange. So now I'm going to have a little bit of yellow orange mixed in with that green blue. Number one, to give me variety. So I'm going to put a little more water into the mix here, so this will flow a little faster. And as soon as I finish this, I'll go back and work on the main post here next to the light preserver. My original plan, I wanted to do that earlier, but I waited here now. So, as you move along, plans change. That's part of art, is just have to go with the flow. So I'll pick that up when I'm ready. I wanted the rest of the paint to get dry anyway. So this ultramarine blue mixed in with this Hooker's green gives me a nice blue-green, which is a nice cool color. And then what I'm going to do now is take my half-inch, and I'm going to go ahead and add in some of that yellow orange, which is a mixture of red and yellow, to give a little bit of interest in the background, a little bit of variety. I'm using a 3/4 inch flat, and I'm using the corner and the edge to go around these small spaces. And it's really a horizon line here is the edge of the waterway here. I'm using it as a horizon line, which is okay. Pick up a little more blue, a little more hooker's green. So now I can play with the background. I got it pretty well loaded now. I'm going to go back now. I'm going to play around with more color. So I'm adding a little more color here to make it a little darker here in the background. I picked up a load of ultramarine blue with my brush, so I'm going to thin that out a little bit with water and a little more pigment over here. You give it a little wiggle. That'll give me a little variety in the background. Some darks and medium values back here, which is good. I'm filling in all the corners now, all the edges. So it won't have any white spots showing. Okay. Okay, now I'll go back and put in a little more. I like to put a little more orange back in there. Just in places, I'll put in some orange. They may look like tree trunks. They may look like trees back here. That's okay. And impressionistic painting, you put in colors that simulate something and let the viewer figure out what it is. You know, when I was studying the complementary colors this week, I read some stories about the impressionist painters, Van Goghs and the Monets and so forth. They're the ones that really started looking at complementary colors because they realized that when you put the colors next to each other, that they came out with a brighter combination in their painting. So that's how it really all started, is back in the impressionistic era, back in the mid 1800s. So that's where the whole movement started with complementary colors. Well, I got this mixture down here. I'm also going to put in a little bit of a little lighter value. So I'm adding a little bit of water to the mix here. That'll give me a lighter value. I'm going to put a little bit of green, bluish green down here in the foreground. Don't want that as dark. Don't want it as dark as the background. I could make it dark, but I don't want to. I could just want to make a little bit of green, a little bit of greenish blue here in the foreground. There was some grass. There was some grass up here, and so this can simulate the grass area. And I'm going to take a little bit of a complement. Now that's mostly green. I'm going to take a little bit of some of that orange, stick it in there. Maybe I'll pick up a little bit of red now. Maybe a little bit of red. So that's the complement of green. So that'll give me that'll be a semi-neutral colors. And that's what I'm looking for in this painting. I'm trying to build up a little bit of semi-neutrals, a mixture of complementary colors to give a little bit of interest. Okay, now let's go back. I got to paint this post. So what I got to do now is I got to go back and make my orange. So let's see. I take my orange, the color mixture I had. I have orange. I mixed it in with a little bit of cobalt blue. And now I'm going to change. I'm going to change the color. But I got to check the colors. I don't want it too dark. So I'm going to add a little more yellow orange to that. So what I'll do now is I'll test my color out here. So I have a little test sheet here to test the color. Yeah, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in now. This post next to my light preserver. I'm using a 1/2 inch flat synthetic brush. And this color right now is going to be, I have a light. Because I got the sun coming from this direction. So I'm using the sunlight here now to help me with this particular subject. Let's say the sun's coming from the right side. And so this will have a little bit lighter value over here on the right side of this item. The post goes right on down to the foreground here. A little grassy area, little grassy area. Okay, I'm going to paint this section in here, but this won't stay this light very long because I'm going to put a shadow in here. I want to go in now and at least put the base color in. I put the base color in first, which was a mixture of yellow orange and cobalt blue, which gives me a light brown mixture. So this is a light brownish mixture. And when I mix complements together, I'm going to get a brown or a gray. So now I'm going to take a little bit of that darker blue now, which is cobalt blue, mixing it with that orange. Now I've got a darker value. And that's going to be the shadow pattern on this one here. So I'm going to put a little shadow pattern. You can see how dark that is now. By adding the blue and the orange together, I get a darker value. And if they're close to the complements, they'll basically turn black. This is what it's doing now. It's giving me a dark color. And it depends on the proportions of how much blue and how much orange you put together. The more blue you put in with the mixture, the darker it gets. The more orange you put in there, the lighter the mix is. There might be a little reflection here from this light preserver, so I can leave a little bit lighter here, just a little bit lighter maybe, you know. Now we're getting technical. Okay, then down here, be darker, dark edge here. This is the shadow side of this pole. Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit more orange now, a little bit more orange. Picking up a yellow orange, and I'm going to go in here and put a little more color in this pole. And what I'm going to do now, notice I went up to the edge of that shadow, and what that does, that softens that edge. So I have a gradual shift of value there, which gives it a shadow pattern. It makes it look round. So this is a round pole, so it gives it the impression. It gives the impression of a round object. A bit darker down here. So if you mix those colors together, while it's still a little bit damp, they'll blend in very nicely. Now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take my smaller brush and just do a little fine tuning now. I'm going to take a little darker mix here, a little more cobalt blue in that mix, and I'm going to darken this up just a smudge. I want this to be much darker in here because it's in shadow. It's inside that little hollow of the hole there, or the round spot. And I'm going to make this a little darker here. So I'm punching up I'm increasing the contrast here on the shadow side, making it a little bit darker so it makes it a little more defined, a little more contrast. So here I'm adding a little more darkness to the shadow area to give it more contrast. And then I can take more of that orange color I just mixed up and then go back in. Yep. Playing around with the edges here, get them a little bit so they're nice and soft. Playing around with the edges. There, leave that alone now, okay? Okay, now these poles over here, I can add a little more, I think I'll add a little more color to that. So these poles here,
We have a comment that the shadow pattern that you put on there really gives it a good dimension.
Yes, oh, yes. That's the purpose of a shadow. The shadow gives you depth in a painting. Now I'm adding a little more orange over here just to give this thing a little more pop as far as this area over here. Just give it a little more interest. It's close to the impact area. So giving a little more color shift. Now as I go away from this side, it's going to get duller. I'm not going to put as much color over here. I'm going to have a little color, but it won't be as bright. Get further away from the impact area. The color will be less intense. Less intense. It's another way of looking at it. The more color you have in a particular area, the more intense the color is. And I can reduce the intensity by adding the complement or adding in a semi-neutral on top of it. So by the time we're finished with this painting here, you're going to understand complementary colors, and you're going to understand what semi-neutrals are. I hope this will be it's a good lesson to have. A lot of paintings, if you look at any paintings in a museum or in an art gallery, you'll see most of them are painted semi-neutral. There are very few mixing using pure pigments. The only art that uses pure pigments is pop art, where they have, and of course, a lot of your advertisements now using bright colors. That's to catch the eye. But most art projects are done in semi-neutrals. Put a little more definition over here to make these poles look like they're in shadow, but also. So while it's still wet, I can still play with this color. I still got to play. I still have to add a little more to the water. So I'm really working on the main design here, which is these the light preserver, the main pole, and a little bit of these are little supporting characters over here. So you can see here I'm doing these very roughly because they're not as important as the impact area. So spending less time with them, less detail. On the tops here, I can add a little bit of orange on the tops. That's what the sun is hitting the tops of these poles. So they'll brighten them up just a little bit. Okay, let's finish. I'm going to finish off the water now. Over here, I'm going to first of all I'm going to use the 1 inch brush, the 1 inch Holbein brush, which is also another synthetic brush, but a very nice one. So Holbein has I have a whole bunch of Holbein brushes. This is the 1 inch flat. I'm gonna re-wet this surface up here a little bit. Then I'm gonna put another color in here. So I'm gonna wet just plain water. The blue paint had dried. So I'm wetting that little area up there where the paint is dry. This section over here won't count at all. And then down here in this section, next to the foreground, a little water down there. So I'm re-wetting that surface. Re-wetting that surface there to give it a little moisture. I'm going to add some color to that. Okay. All right. So I pre-wet that area. Now I'm going to mix it. I'm going to mix up a little bit of light bluish green because I got reflection coming from the trees, so they'll be reflected in the water. So this color here, right next to the blue now, is going to be a mixture of blue and green. And I'm going to take this wet brush that I have with this Holbein 1 inch and bring that across there to smooth out that color. Okay. over here, I'm going to bring this across. The reflection from the trees into the water. I'm going to take the wet brush that I had before and just smooth that out so it blends. Pick up some more bluish green. Take the wet brush, smooth out the edge.
We have a question.
Question? Yes.
I tend to rework a lot. How do you know when to stop?
Well, the best way to stop is when if you have a goal in the beginning of this painting, if you reach that goal, then you stop. A lot of paintings are overworked because you go beyond where you want it to go. For example, here I just want to capture the essence of this contrast here. Here I'm putting in the area of the water. As soon as I get that color in and get the look that I want, then I stop. So I guess the best advice I have is put the brakes on before you go too far. It's always a tendency to overwork a painting, and that's probably the biggest thing that you have to learn is not to overdo. But I guess the best advice I have is have a goal for your painting before you start painting. Have a goal. Is it you're working on contrast? You're working on value? You're working on color? And I know you can say, well, I'm working on all those, but mainly you should have a primary goal that you're working on. In today's lesson, we're working with color. And of course, with color, you have value, you have contrast. But today we're working with color. So I'm trying to get across the story of color. And how do you work with complementary colors? How are they used? How do you paint complementary colors? And where are they in the paintings? Here you can see the blue and the orange now is really popping out. I'm going to do a little bit of work on the top of this post here. I'm going to make up a color. I'm going to take a alizarin crimson. I'm going to add a little bit of ultramarine blue, and that gives me a nice violet. I'm going to paint the top of this post violet. I wanted to have a dark color, so this is it's not the darkest. It's one of the darker colors you can do. Blue mixed in with red will give you a nice dark color. Now I have to watch the edges here because I just painted this area, so I got paint there that's wet. So I'm being very careful with the edges, or it'll start bleeding in. So I'll start off with that. Okay. All right. Now what I want to do to finish off some of this area of this painting, I'm going to work on some of the areas. Yeah, there's not too much more I need to do. I really, other than a couple of things I'll point out to you here. This area in here, I'm going to put a little bit of, I've got a reddish here and I got green here. So I'm going to put a little bit of red. I'm going to use that, take that alizarin crimson again. And I'm going to put that down here. There's along this water, there's a metal edge, and it's part of the edge of the land there. They have to keep the water from coming up on shore. So it holds the bank together. So there's this metal edge here, which is a really rusty color, but I'm using violet here, or using really alizarin crimson, which is a dark red. And it's also the dark red. The reason I chose it here is it's complementary to the green. I have green down here, green, and I also have blue. So I'm picking a color that works together, and this is a complementary color. I got greens in it, I got reds in it. So this complementary color is going to really stand out now against that green color. Now I'm going to let that dry a little bit before I go back and clean up the edges a little bit. And also eliminated some of the white colors too. Now I'm going to do the same thing up here in the top. I'm going to take that Listerine Crimson. I'm going to put, there's an edge, there's a edge to the waterway here. It's a bulkhead which keeps the water contained. The edges of the bulkhead, edges of the waterway is a bulkhead, and it's actually wooden logs is what it is. Waterproof logs. Been there a long time, but it's along the edge of the waterway. So I'm painting. I'm using this Listerine Crimson again for the same reason, because I got a green background. I'm going to use the dark color here to go with that green. It has to be complementary, but when I add the complementary colors together, it's going to give me a dark mix, which is what I want. I want a dark color back here. So by adding the complementary color to green, which is red, I automatically get a dark color. And the red will show up a little bit of the green. I mean, that's where the complement comes from. It will make the green look a little bit darker, greener. The red with the green makes it a little bit darker because I mixed the colors. I got a little bit of bleeding there, but that's because part of the paint was wet. Now, if you do have a wet area like that, it's I put the water was wet here. I take a tissue. I take a nice clean edge, and I go right up to that edge where it's bleeding over, wetness, and I go along there and just press on it. Just press on the paint. Pick it up. Okay, and it takes it away, and let it dry. Okay, I think what I'll do now, I'm gonna leave some white areas showing because that's really it's just a matter of going back in and adding in more color. What I want to do now is a couple little details here on these little posts over here I want to fill in. I'm going to take a little bit of Payne's Gray, which is my dark black. I'm using the number 8 round, and these poles here, or these posts, are held up with wires. So I'm going to go ahead and paint in the little sections, separate the wires a little bit. So I got to take the fine point and then just go in here and separate this. This will give the impression of these wires running along the edge here. This is what holds these posts together.
And what brush is that you're using?
This is it's a number 8 round. It's a number 8 round synthetic brush from Holbein. And I go into the paint. It's a nice brush. All these Holbein brushes are great. I use them a lot in my paintings. This gives me a nice smooth mark. I could use my rigger too. I have a rigger, but this one gives me a little more. I get a little more paint in the brush, and if I very carefully mark the point here, I can get a nice soft, smooth combination. Okay, and then got one more to go. So this will give a little bit of interest. I don't really need a lot of interest over here, but I want to put a little definition over here on this side. Not to leave it alone. But this is the cables. These are cables that hold up these posts. They hold them together. And they use these things to tie up boats with and so forth. And I've seen the large barges here, which comes through the waterway every day. I see them all the time. There's a little large staples to hold this together. That's why I'm calling them staples. They're like a staple. They're a large nail that hangs in there. Okay. And the last thing I want to do is I'm going to take a little bit of, I'm going to mix a brown up. How do I mix a brown? I'm going to take yellow. I'm going to take yellow. I'm going to take orange. I'm going to just, that's orange. That's almost a brown. I just, a touch of blue into it. I'll put a little bit of ultramarine blue. Now I have a brown. I have a brown. By taking the orange, mix a little bit of blue to it, which is the complement, I get a brown. And from that, I can put a little definition up here on these on the tops of these poles. Just a little definition. They look lonely over here, so I'm give them a little touch. Say we're thinking of you. Maybe I'll put a little more definition here between the poles. Now you can add as much detail as you want to a painting like this. This is where the question I had about overworking. This is the point where, okay, have I said what I want to say? Have I finished what I want to say? Then that's the time to quit. Because if you go any further anymore, then you just overwork it. Up here on the let's see, ultramarine. I put in ultramarine in with that alizarin crimson. I got the dark violet, and I can go back here now and clean up these edges. So I'll go. This is dry enough now, hopefully. So I'll take out the white paper. I clean up the white edges. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, that's a demonstration today. Now, what I demonstrated today was complementary colors, and the main complementary colors was the orange and the red orange. This is the two orange, red orange and orange with the main colors I was using. But you can see the majority of the other colors has got blue in it. So when you do a complementary painting, you want to have a dominant color. The dominant color here was blue. I have blue in the water. I have blue mixed with the green up here in the trees, and I have blue mixed in with green down here in the foreground. So the dominant color was blue, but the area that I wanted to have the impact on was its contrasting, complementary, was orange and red orange. So that was the real scheme here of this particular painting. That was my plan in the very beginning. Let me put a mat around this. Move it over. I always have to move it over a little bit to the right, so you can see the whole picture. Okay. All right. It always looks better when you put it under a mat. It kind of closes it in. It kind of shows you the scheme and so forth of the waterway with the boat dock, the life preserver, and the adjoining boat hitches that I call them. That's where you hitch up the boats here on these large pilings. And the only other thing I need to clean up a little bit, maybe. Here I go. I'm overworking now. This is overworking. I'm going to just take away these whites. It's not really overworking, but the point is, I didn't have to go back and do that, but I did it anyway. And that's also an idea of not to do that if you don't have to. Now I did another one. I don't think this is going to show any difference. I think I can show you another one. Let me show you another one I did. Earlier one. This is the one I did for practice. I think there's a little more contrast here. Let me show this one off. Okay. Okay. Same idea with the orange and the red orange here, and the complementary blue color. This is your cobalt blue here, and the blue greens mixes in the water. And I spent a little more time on a post over to give them a little more definition. But they didn't need as much attention over here as this is the most attention right here. Okay. I'm going to take a sip of water. I'm doing talking too much. Okay, let's go back to my main camera. Okay, well, I had another fun day today with complementary colors. I'm having every time I paint, I have any fun. I enjoy painting, and it's a lot of fun to paint this way. And I really enjoy it when I have an audience or someone that can enjoy what I'm doing. Surprisingly, after the show, when I replay this, I get a lot more viewers coming in that look at the view. So I just I hope that you will be subscribing to my YouTube channel. Will give me a like, give me a thumbs up, and then tune in to me on Thursday. I'll be back again next week with another presentation, another demonstration. So I hope you'll join me then.
Post in Facebook art group.
And did I answer all the comments?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't forget the art group.
Okay. Yeah, the art group on Facebook is very important to me. It's something I started a couple of years ago, and the art group allows you to go in and post your practice painting or whatever, and I can help you. I can monitor it and take a look at it and give you some help if you need it. You go to my website, and there's a link there at on my home page on my website. It takes you right to the Fun with Watercolors, and it'll take you. And you go to Facebook and sign into the Everett Watercolors art group, and that's where you'll find me on Facebook. So good luck to you all, and I hope you have a nice, fun week this week and try some painting. And I'll see you next Thursday at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.